already believe the conspiracy about Fire Emblem Three Hopes, it got deeper. This was definitely being planned all along. I mean, we already had all this evidence to look at, and now this new trailer has only further confirmed that. Down from the name of Byleth always being the Ashen Demon, and that only coming into play like once for one scene, and now the Ashen Demon is our new villain. We're actually seeing what it means, why you got that nickname, and the true power that comes behind this person called the Ashen Demon. We already had scenes about Byleth killing someone that most people wouldn't have, and now we're seeing the life of someone who Byleth did kill when a lot of people would not have. This was always being planned. I mean, even down to Edelgard and Dimitri's routes, completely juxtaposing each other's, with Dimitri's being about redemption and hope and second chances, and Edelgard's being about rapid change and new order and achieving her destiny. It always felt so out of place, right? But now it makes sense. We saw Talus, we saw the revival of Nemesis and the true power of the Agarthans, but now we're seeing what may be an Agarthan deity being placed into someone's head to wake them up. I think it's time we wake up and realize that this is what Nintendo always had planned. Okay, that's enough of that. But I think this is going to be really great for us all to get to explore. I mean, Byleth was known as the Ashen Demon. We saw one scene in Chapter 4 where Byleth kind of kills someone who's cowering, has a barrier, and is clearly not a threat anymore. But she chooses to fight through this barrier and kill this person. Of course, Byleth calms down over the course of the game because of her love for her students. That's something that is instilled in Byleth very early on, even before the developments begin to happen, which is why Byleth is both the person who is willing to save the kingdom and redeem someone, and the person who is willing to burn down the church and start life anew, basically. Because Byleth is guided more so by her love for her students than by her own emotions and judgment. That is why this new game is going to be so important for the lore of Three Hopes, because we never got to experience the Ashen Demon aside from one kill that was questionable at best. Now we are playing as a mercenary who is not necessarily a horrible person, just someone who is from a different army, who was paid to do something when they needed money. This person, Shez, is killed by Byleth in 1179. With Shez dead, time goes on with the original 4 timelines that you've played in 3 houses. But this time, somehow, Shez wakes up, trains for 1 year, and then goes back to the forest. But there, he sees bandits chasing these 3 students, and Shez steals the save. Shez is instead taken to the academy, while Byleth is just left wandering as usual, and Shez becomes a student. Byleth is not a teacher, as far as we know. Again, when Byleth is changed by her love for the students, Shez is killed before meeting the students. Well, now things are clearly different. We'll get to see that version of Byleth who never really grows emotion, and I'm sure that at some point in the game we'll make our peace, we'll move on, and we'll all be happy again. It is a lot more exciting to live in the moment and see that, hey, if we take our real-world knowledge out of this, then it really does seem like Byleth is the villain for once. I've seen games turn the main characters into villains, but for a game to make the avatar character the villain of a future game, I haven't seen before, and again, I don't think it'll last, but it is definitely an exciting twist. I know Shez has been met with lukewarm reception so far, but I'm excited to see where this goes. I think that the first and most important thing to do to understand this game's storyline is understand that difference, that Shez should be dead, but Shez being alive somehow changes events. But how? Why? Why is Monica alive just because Shez wasn't killed? Well, that's why I wanted to go to the etymology, look at the names, see what things mean. Shez being the protagonist, and Navarro being our new Sothis-like character. According to some texts, Shez might have some roots in Greek, which is important because the Agarthans' names are named after the 7 Greek sages. I don't think Shez is an Agarthan, but I have a whole thing to get on that in just a second. But before we do that, it's also worth noting that Shez is also a king in the Mormon lore. And I'm kind of hurt that none of my Mormon friends told me that their religion and their lore had kings. But Shez is a king who came into power after the fall of the Tower of Babel. The Tower of Babel is a place that people created using teamwork to try to ascend to the skies and achieve godhood. That matters. The Tower of Babel was destroyed and people were split up. Just like in this game, peace can't really be maintained, so people split up into these 3 routes. The reason the Tower of Babel matters is because both Byleth and apparently Shez are able to achieve godhood. Edelgard manages to achieve some demonic form of demonhood in her Hegemon Husk form, and Rhea, in a way, achieves godhood as well. Talus tries to with his javelins that, honestly, if you lived in the past and someone starts raining those things out of the sky at you, and then revives a dude named Nemesis to destroy the entire turret, you would think he's some sort of a dark god. So that might be thematic. Shez is also the name of a demon in some weird, creepy demon books, and actually has connections to Byleth. And as a prince demon, he actually has his own category, where he's actually the demon of incest. It might be worth noting that the characters' names are tied together, and the meaning doesn't matter, and there is no purpose in looking in deeper. So, depending on if Shez is named after Shez, the Mormon king, or Belshazzar, or Shaz, the demon, or whatever, what matters is there is a lot tying Shez to Byleth just from etymology. What matters more, though, is that Shez should be dead. Byleth dies at the beginning of 3 Houses, but Byleth, we know, was a stillborn baby who had Sothis' heart implanted into her. Whereas Shez didn't seem to have that. Shez survives, or Shez actually dies in the 3 Houses timeline. Byleth kills him, and he is dead the entire game. But for 3 Hopes, something was different. Well, this again, like I referenced, I do think that Avarl, this little white dude, this little white-haired dude, is the equivalent to Sothis. He's probably the larval state of the Agarthan god. Aside from potential naming schemes, he also is tied to the Agarthans through the white hair, and that the body style that he has very closely resembles Edelgard's Hegemon Husk form when she goes full demon mode on Dimitri. Avarl's white hair is also reminiscent of some of the Agarthans, as well as Edelgard and Lysithea post-testing. So for those reasons, I think that it's very possible that Avarl is just the larval state and will evolve into something bigger. But there is more to that, because when we're looking at the weapons menu, there's a little talon, or maybe an animal foot. But there aren't any transforming units in 3 Houses. But 3 Hopes seems to use it as one of the weapon styles that some people can master. My guess is that that might belong to Shez in some sort of exclusive form once he classes up and fuses with Avarl, because we know he does due to his facial markings. But it could also fit characters like Dedue, when he sacrifices himself and turns into a beast to try to save Dimitri and ultimately fails in the Crimson Flowers route. Or Edelgard, in her demon form, when she shifts into the Hegemon Husk to try to kill Dimitri after he's nearly overthrown the Empire. Maybe it means that we'll get some sort of mode where we can play as a demonic beast or something. But really, I think those are the most likely candidates, as well as, of course, Rhea, because maybe instead of a dragon icon, they're using that for demonic beasts and dragons alike. But I think that just seeing that symbol has given me so much more hope for this game. So that's who I think Avarl is, the larval god of the larval form of the Agarthan god. Whereas Shez is just a random mercenary who was found dead, and due to some timey-wimey shenanigans, the Agarthans, who have this really incredibly advanced future tech anyway, so maybe they do have time travel, or maybe their god had time travel, or maybe Divine Pulse effed up and put them in this place, but somehow they tie Shez to Avarl and change the past, stopping Byleth before Byleth even meets the students. Which of course will backfire in their faces, because this time Shez will be able to do something Byleth never did, and I don't know what that is. My guess is that it'll be making Avarl be more humanized, and Byleth and Shez will team up to defeat Talus. But whatever happens, my guess is we do all 3 routes, and then a 4th route opens up, and that's a golden route instead of a Shez personal route. That's a guess. We will of course have to see about that. But as it stands, I don't see this game not ending with a golden route. Just from what we know on the trailer, this game is already pretty darn golden anyway, because our roster, I was excited to speculate about it, But I don't know if there's much need to do that, because we're getting the class change system back, which I was concerned about for a Warriors game. It seems to be that there's going to be weapon durability because skills have durability cost. So things are going to be harder than they were before, but we're getting our class change system back, which means every single class has to have a moveset built anyway, which means clones are going to be a thing for one. But for characters who can be almost any class, obviously the lords have their own class and things like that, but there's no real need to not have all the students. If supports are a thing, then that's one thing, and you have to write some supports. But you don't need to write a bunch, and you can already pull from the existing support logs. And not everyone needs to support everyone. They didn't even in the base 3 houses game. So every student has a really good chance at coming back. Aside from them, some key NPCs seem to as well. I mean, we've seen Holst, Berlice, Judith, Randolph, Geralt, Rodriguez, and this really charming fella here, who I think will be Claude's half-brother or Uncle Godfrey. Either way, we're getting this large cast of characters that some of whom weren't playable in 3 houses that seem like they might be now. This could be a huge roster, and it works because there aren't going to be too many exclusive classes. Byleth's Enlightened One class is probably going to be exclusive with the whip sword and everything, or maybe shared with Nemesis or something, if we get Nemesis, obviously. Shez is most likely going to have a unique class only shared with male and female variants, and then the Lords have a unique class. Other than that, no one needs a unique class. It would be kind of cool if some people got one, but nobody needs one. We'll have a bunch of clones, but no one's really going to complain because we're going to have all the characters that we've grown to love. Right, like it was a problem when Owain was a clone of Ryoma, who we hadn't met in his form of Owain at least. But when it's not so much that Ignatz is a clone of Ashe, but instead that they're both archers because I made them both archers, it's a whole different debate. It's not going to be seen as so bad anymore. So I'm a huge fan of that decision. I didn't think I would be, but I am. I also think it's going to be great to class change Shez because I'll get to see purple and tan instead of purple and bright red. I love Shez. I think I'm digging Shez so far, but I'm not a fan of his color scheme that much. Maybe it'll grow on me. Maybe the full official art, once it's done, will have different tones of the red and purple that'll make it work better for me. But so far it's a little hard. But even that doesn't matter that much, because there are so many characters I can choose from. There's so much to do in this game. Exploring the actual camps is going to be a blast. I really have nothing but hype for this game anymore. I mean, some concerns that the story's not going to be told in the best way it could be. The KT told the original story for this game, with 3 houses being largely a KT production. And it had some storytelling flaws and issues, but overall it's got great lore, it's got a decent story, and it's got great characters who make a decent story feel kind of great. While Edelgard's story has always been a tragic one to me because you're watching her descend further and further, and she never talks about these issues she has. It's all about fulfilling my destiny, and it's all guided and circling around her. I hurt the whole time. I wasn't mad at her for not talking to the people that she could have talked to or not trying to find a peaceful solution. It was more sad because I could see that, just like the song says, she's hiding behind this mask, and she doesn't know how much of the mask is her. For Dimitri, he went actually mad. He was killing people, sometimes the ones that didn't need to die. But he was hurting, and it felt like he was hurting. The characterization was done so well that even some flaws in storytelling were forgiven. The only thing I couldn't forgive was the monastery mechanic, where we would be marching north and then we would teleport back to the monastery. But now we're setting up camp, which means when we're marching north, we just set up camp in the north. It's exactly what I would have wanted for a game like this. So I'm really excited about what they're doing here. If I had to give my hopes that have no chance of happening, I want there to be crossover characters, because for a Warriors game, one of the things I most like to see is people who should never meet getting a chance to talk. And while it shouldn't be canon to the storyline, because the storyline is a 3 Houses world story, I think that there is an easy enough way to separate this guy's not part of the story, or he's post-game only, special modes only, DLC, whatever. But I think a character trio pack or something of Ike, Crom, and Lindis would be great. And they could each have their own special class that when you buy the DLC, you actually get access to the class. and everyone can become their class, or most people can become their class or whatever. But since there's not really a way for Chrom to play like Awakening Chrom in Warriors, or Warriors Chrom in Warriors 2 or whatever, you make that his own class. And for Ike, you need a hero-like character who uses swords and axes, but he's got the beam sword and he's got a heavier sword and he throws it around and it's a whole different class. That's fine, because you can just add a class for Ike, call it Ranger or something. Now, I'm not going to be sad when that's not there, because I know that's an out there hope. I'm just kind of saying, like, yes, this game's not going to be my personal perfect fan fiction game, but there's so much for me to be excited in for it. Even things that I never thought I would care about, like Monica coming back. I was curious and confused about how she was. Right now, I'm thinking it's because if the Agarthans have a hand in Shez attaining Avaril, and the Agarthans think that Shez is going to lead them to their new life, then maybe they didn't need to kill Monica and make Kronia spy for her. And maybe if Monica and Kronia aren't the same person, Edelgard has another friend. You know, she's not working with the Agarthans, she's working with other people now. I don't know. I'm curious to see how Edelgard's plotline with her working with those who slither in the dark will come to light, and maybe this time characters will be more sympathetic and they'll be willing to help her instead of going to war. Not that I blame Claude and Dimitri. Edelgard started the war, but this time maybe it'll come out sooner, before she starts a war. I think that's always a great idea, to talk about your qualms and stuff before going that far. And I think Shez might be able to help her do it. Byleth's not the most personable person, so maybe Byleth couldn't talk to Edelgard and say, like, hey, don't kill everyone, please. But Shez will be like, maybe the class should just like say something first. Maybe that's how we get the golden route. I doubt it's that simple, but I'd kind of love it if it was. And I think we're going to get Byleth early on. Personally, for me, I'm going male Byleth and probably female Shez, just so that it's different and unique between the two of them, but also because I don't really care about Byleth's gender, but I have a small preference for male Byleth's armor. And I think, especially with the Ashen Demon role, male Byleth's face looks a lot more stoic, whereas female looks a lot more kind. And male has those really cool gauntlets. Plus, male Byleth can marry Shamir, and I know that I don't think marriage is going to be an option in Three Hopes, but I'd like to think that post Three Hopes, male Byleth still marries Shamir. So it's really those small things that add up that make me prefer male Byleth for this game. Shez, I haven't played as Shez yet. I really don't have a preference, but I think it'll be more fun to make them different genders just for the sake of uniqueness. Anyway, this trailer was more focused on Shez than anything else, but the fact that they opened up by saying it'll be focused on Shez sort of makes me think that we might get 3 more trailers. We might just get one for E3, like right before the launch trailer, we just get that one E3 trailer. But I think that in early May, late May, and early June, we'll get 3 more trailers, like every couple weeks, and they'll focus on each of the 3 routes. I think that'd be really cool. It'll give us a little bit of info on why the routes are split, what each route means, a guest character for each route, like the Black Eagles has Monica and hopefully Jaritza back, Blue Lions, maybe they'll get Gilbert back, and they'll get Rodrigue, Golden Deer, or Golden Wildfire, we'll get Holst and Godfrey, or Claude's half-brother, whoever that man is. Although that guy seems like he's kind of antagonistic, at least at first. I could see him being an ally by the end. But even then, maybe there's more than 2 guest characters, because, we still got to answer to Judith, Randolph, Count Berlice. Like, there are so many people in this game, at least in the story mode of it, that hopefully everybody gets their chance as a playable character, and they're not just held over our heads for future DLC. Hopefully Yuri and the other Ashen Wolves are back, and they're not just, again, gonna be DLC for a second time in a row. But maybe the game doesn't need them to come back. Maybe they could work as DLC. I just think it'd be a lot better if we didn't have to pay for them again. But I don't know. That's all a big question mark right now. So I'm not mad about that or upset about that. I'm just kind of spitballing. I am really optimistic about this game. I'm really looking forward to it. So yeah, I have a few questions going out of the trailer, but if I didn't, then it would kind of probably be a bad trailer, I think. So I can't wait to learn more about the roster, see where things go, and see which of these characters are going to end up being playable, and getting to meet some of these new characters or characters in a new way. I also cannot wait to fight Byleth as an enemy and see Byleth and Shez awakened battling. This game legitimately went from a game that I was going to buy because it was a Fire Emblem game to one of my most wanted purchases. The way they did that so fast. I mean, watching the trailer and seeing the before you stands your toughest enemy yet, or your most important whatever, your greatest foe. And I'm looking at Shez thinking like, yeah, kill him. Kill this purple-haired D-bag. And then it says the Ashen Demon, right? Like, that moment, my mind exploded because they didn't have to do anything. They showed me Byleth, and I was on Byleth's side. They showed me purple hair guy attacking Byleth, and I hated him. I'm like, this is the villain, this is the bad guy. But I said it. I said, we don't have confirmation that Byleth is playable. I did not call it all that Byleth was the villain, but I will take the small victory. Just watch that part of the video and ignore the rest of it and just say I was right. Before I start rambling, I'll cut it there, but I'm really looking forward to the next time I get to talk about this game, and unfortunately I won't be able to play it as soon as it's out, but as soon as I get to play it, I am going to be very excited to start analyzing things and making videos, because for the first time I'll be making these videos as the Fire Emblem game is new, instead of, thinking of looking back and analyzing all these old Fire Emblem games that everyone's already talked about and seen. Have a great day. Thank you.